Hey, welcome back. It's time for our next presentation. Welcome on stage my colleague, Antoni Ivanov, who is a staff engineer at VMware, and he's going to talk about DataOps as a service using the product Versatile Data Kit. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. So, uh, before I start, a wise man once told me that when I'm going on a lecture or presentations, I want to make sure to note down 3 new things I'm learning and 3 action items I want to take. I'm going to help you with the 3 action items. By the end of the lecture, I will give you 3 action items for you to take home and try to improve yourself or the world around you. So, before we start, sort of the starting point of my presentation is I'm going to assume that you believe what the quote says. If you don't, I suggest either you read the book or watch the movie Moneyball. Basically, I'm going to assume you're on the same page that good decisions or in good products are not just based on gut feelings, even if they come with a lot of experience, but on rigorous analysis of data. That's sort of a starting point. And then, in this presentation, I'm going to go over what are data applications and why they should matter for everyone, and what are the main parts of DataOps or DevOps for data, like API for data, SLOs and SLAs for data, and the DevOps cycle for data. And going to talk a bit about open source project Versatile Data Kit that tries to help along. Before that, let's talk about cooking. How I used to work in restaurants 3 times, and you also, even if you haven't worked at a restaurant, I guess most of you have cooked, right? And when you're cooking, your focus is on create dishes, food that is delicious, that is good looking, that's good quality, that's easy to consume. If you're in a restaurant, you want this to be delivered quickly. So we produce this good food. What is something else that we produce? Any guesses? More food, actually, in the form of peelings and leftovers. And this kind of food, generally, we throw it in the garbage. But this is generally very useful. There are some kind of, according to World Food Program, approximately 1/3 of the food for consumption is being wasted. That's approximately 1.3 billion tons of food, which, according to World Food Program, could feed 2 billion people. That's like a lot, right? And I'm gonna draw the metaphor here where food is data. I'm gonna say that yes, we create this kind of good software applications, but we also waste a lot of data when we're doing it. But my first action item for you actually is the United Nations and a lot of countries come with 17 sustainability goals. The food waste problem is number 12. So I encourage you to go to this website, globalgoals.org, and take action. There are some good advices. Maybe you're doing some of them. Try to do one that you haven't done so far. So that's my first action item for you. But let's switch gears. Let's talk about data applications, right? Software applications. I assume a lot of people here work in software, and you are creating software applications. And when we're creating software applications, we pride ourselves that those applications are easy to consume, easy to use by users. They are good quality, similar to the dishes. And in similar way, we are also producing a lot of data waste in the form of logs, in the form of monitoring, in all kinds of different ways. And this data is being used. Actually, data engineers, data practitioners that are trying to use this data in order to create basically data applications. This might be BI intelligence reports that are helping business make better decisions. It might be forecasting modules for the finance team. It might be machine learning models to create better products. Generally, how the data journey of this data goes through is like that. Let's use an example of e-commerce app, right? In e-commerce app, you have catalog, checking, and billing system, but it produces all kinds of different data. You have logs that are stored in some system like S3 or Google Cloud or Work Intelligence. You have, of course, your transactional databases where you store the information about each transaction that the user is making. And you can store different types of events for clickstream and so forth in a Kafka system. So the usual data journey, the data engineer needs to go to the garbage can. In this case, I mean the data sources, and basically ingest this data. This is the process we call data ingestion. He needs to go pull this data from all kinds of different sources and put it in a common analytic system, which are called data lake, so that it can be used later for analysis. This later is what we call data transformations. For data transformations, we are trying to clean the data, to prepare it, to combine it, to aggregate it from different sources, so we can create this kind of data model that can be used either by other data applications, be used in data reports, or be used to make decisions. And of course, we also use it to create and train ML models, which can be used to improve our products or again to create better decisions. Ultimately, I guess we can fall out two categories. Either we use it to make better decisions or better products. All this requires a lot of data infrastructure, and I'm going to call this for now data application that data teams have to create. So, how do you can see the question. So how do multiple applications communicate with each other? Build software application that software engineers create and data application data engineers create. Right, API. And what does usually API for data looks like? Well, the main ingredients of API for data, the first thing you want to define is, right, before that. So the example, let's say that I'm going to use this example where I want to combine two types of data. One is the current product info, which let's say is stored in the OTPDB. And the second one is legacy product info, which is stored in S3 service. And as we talk about, we want to ingest this data and store it in a data lake. And then we want to create this kind of all products data module where everyone in the company knows that if you want to know something about the product, the correct information about product, you will go to this data module. So where do we have communication between different applications? Well, in the beginning, of course, between the source systems and our data application that we're creating. And between our data applications and other data applications, reports, or other software applications that are using this kind of all-product data model. So this is where we need to have APIs defined. And those APIs for data tend to look like this. So, for example, we are using our all-products data model. And let's say that this contains more information, right, about each product. So first, we want to make sure that it has certain structure and schema, right, so that people know how to query it. The second thing, very important, is the semantics of this data needs to be something that the user understands and something that they need. So we need to make sure to define the correct data semantics. And of course, we need to provide a way for those users to access the data. Often, this is in the form of database in SQL queries or data stored in S3 in a Park Arrow data format using Python and Pandas data frames. It's often used in analytics and ML. But now that we have our APIs, we want to make sure that these APIs, these data APIs, are serving the user needs. So we need to define certain level service level objectives about this data. And those need to be metrics that the user would care about. So what the user of the data, would care about? Well, the semantics, right? We've promised them certain things about the semantics, so they need to be accurate. So we need to define data accuracy SLOs. They care that the data is accessible or queryable. So we need data availability SLOs. They care that the data is getting updated in time. If there is a new product, the new product is within an hour or a day or whatever the SLA is. So we need data freshness SLOs. Those are very frequent SLOs that you see in the data. There are, of course, many more. Overall, this is what I'm going to call data contracts. Data contracts is my second action item for you. If you're a software engineer or a data engineer, I really encourage you to go and learn more about data contracts. If you Google data contrast, you certainly find a lot more, but I can also recommend blog posts by Chad Sanderson, who would hopefully open your eyes about why even as software engineer we need to care about the data that we produce, even if it's internal data. And the last part, we want to talk about the development cycle, right? You need to develop and operate all your applications. The same way goes for data applications. I hope we're all familiar with the DevOps cycle, so I'm going to flatten it here. We have this kind of 8 stages: plan, code, build, test, release, deploy, operate, monitor. I think let's try now to map the data journey to this DevOps cycle. Discovering and exploring the data fits very well the planning stage, and then we need to write ingestion and transformation logic. So all this kind of thing fits very well the planning, code, and build stages. Then we need to make sure to deploy our data application and deploy the data so that people can use it, and that fits the middle part of the DevOps cycle. And finally, we want to make sure to manage the data and operate and monitor the data applications, which fits the operate and monitor part of the DevOps cycle. So let's now talk about Versatile Data Kit. Versatile Data Kit is an open source tool developed initially internally in VMware, which was open sourced a year or so ago. And its goal is to make data engineering efficient and overall. So it provides 2 things. The one thing is a VDK SDK, which provides ability to write data applications using Python SQL. And the second thing is control service, which allows you to monitor and deploy those kind of applications. You can use both independently. So basically, if you look at the data journey, Versatile Data Kit is a framework that you can use to basically build different pieces of the data journey. And the control surface is where you can run them or somewhere else. The important thing about Versatile Data is very extensible, so you can apply DevOps practices and SLOs practices in an extensible manner. So let's look at an example. Let's say you have a database that's crashing, or maybe it's too expensive because in cloud things generally don't crash. And you find out that, simple example, the users are executing this kind of huge queries. So what can we do? We want to catch this as early as possible, preferably at development time. And if users are using Versatile Data Kit, they can develop on their machine. And infra team or DevOps team can build a plugin, some kind of query SLO plugin, that would check if the query is too long, your program will fail as early as possible during development time. So it will never reach production staging or even your database. And this is an example for the SDK. And the control service is what it tries to do is sort of tries to abstract and obfuscate as much possible of the DevOps cycle. And still, the data teams need to make sure that they plan the ingestion transformation jobs, and they have the best domain knowledge about them, so they need to operate and monitor them. But you can have IT team that configure extents, establish certain best practices. For example, this is a very simplistic example. Again, let's say that a standardized team want to establish certain level of testing before this job is being deployed, right, with CI/CD. So they can do that by basically extending a Docker image. Or they want to do security hardening, like forbid certain files or do static code analysis or remove the execution bits of a file before they be deployed. And that also is possible. So in summary, I generally want to encourage you to think about reducing the data waste. Each time that you are creating data applications, you are producing data that is going to be used. So things about API for data, what the SLOs and SLAs of this data, and how this data fits in the DevOps cycle. My animation didn't work. And Versatile Data Kit helps in some ways, but it's a new project, so if anybody likes to use or contribute to new projects, is welcome to come. And finally, my reminder for the 3 action items that I want you to take. The first one is, of course, please do go to globalgoals.org and just browse there. For 15 minutes, I'm sure you're going to find something that would really help the world. The second one is learn more about data contracts. If you're backend engineer, front engineer, data engineer, it's going to be useful for you. And the third one, if you're interested in new things, go check Versatile Data Kit and yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Antoni, and thank you for the example with the full garbage. It was really powerful. So it's time for your questions. Do you have any questions? Yep, we have one here.
I'm sorry?
Sorry? Do you have any thoughts on data completeness? Or you consider it part of the accuracy KPI?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, data completeness. What do you mean? Like making sure that all
if
the
you
data
have
that you
all
need,
the data
like
in
all
the
product
data
data,
application, yes,
is
exactly.
something that you need. Yeah, it is.
And how do you measure it?
Those are just 3 examples that I mentioned, because it's that's not something easy because it requires a lot of domain knowledge about the source systems that you have to go. That's why I think one thing that's missing is a lot of collaboration between software engineers and data engineers. And this is something in our industry we really need to improve. That's why I encourage a lot of software engineers, especially to look at data contracts, which is something that would help. Because when you talk about software engineers, you find out much more about all kind of hidden APIs and hidden data semantics that are generally not available to data engineers. So yeah, I don't have a good answer, but communication is the best thing I think that can help.
Okay, where to start from your perspective to improve that with regards to data completeness? Because data contracts not going to help with that, right?
Well, if you're a software engineer, think more about how the data that you're producing is going to affect the other people, because it's going to do it no matter what. No, if you're a data engineer, be more proactive and talk to the software engineers. That's.
Thanks.
Okay, so if we don't have more questions, or if you're too shy to ask your questions, we can take a short break.
You can find me at the VMware booth around.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.